Hey, what's up guys? Hope you're all feeling fantastic out there. In this top 10 episode, I'm diving into the filmography of another action movie legend. I have 10 flicks that I think are his best, so let's get into my top 10 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Getting this list started at number 10, I have the 1990 comedy Kindergarten Cop, directed by Ivan Reitman, where Arnold goes undercover as a kindergarten teacher to find the ex-wife of a criminal who may be holding the key to solving a big case. Now, the tough guy paired with kids formula has been done for years. It's almost like a rite of passage for wrestlers trying to break into Hollywood, with The Rock, Batista, Hogan, and John Cena all taking their turn. But it was Arnold who set the bar in this subgenre with this flick, because Kindergarten Cop is just a classic action comedy that still holds up great today. The story is simple, but I think it's really woven into the formula so well that it just fits for an engaging time. Arnold swaps between the tough guy and the big softy persona with a smooth flow, and he shows a surprisingly charming comedic timing with all the kids, because it delivers lighthearted laughs, amusing fish out of water moments with effective doses of action that, when blended together, allows the familiar plot beats and the weak villain to still be easily enjoyable. Now, I assure you this is an action-heavy list, but I do have another Ivan Reitman-directed Arnold comedy coming in at number 9. I picked 1988's Twins, also starring Danny DeVito. Here, Arnold and DeVito are twins that are separated at birth, who live different lives, who end up reconnecting and are forced to adjust to one another's vastly different lifestyles.
Who are you?
I'm Vincent's brother.
We're twins.
That's right.
Now, personally, I think the absurdity of this movie is where the true humor lies, because clearly Arnold and DeVito look nothing alike. In fact, they could be classed as polar opposites across the board, and to me, that's why it never fails to deliver laughs, because seeing Arnold's soft and polite character cross paths with DeVito's abrasive one, to me, is pure 80s comedy, and I think it really does work because both Arnold and DeVito really sell the material. They showcase a great chemistry. It's just a ridiculous premise, but I think the self-awareness and I would say just the sense of humor in the writing make it all work, because it delivers a range of comedic material from dialogue to situational humor and sight gags, and I think Chloe Webb and the late Kelly Preston are great in this movie as well. I definitely think they pair with Arnold and DeVito nicely, and the adventure that these characters take, I think, gives the movie charming moments of emotion. And yeah, it may be all a little bit cheesy and it's definitely a little bit dated, but it's still an awesome 80s flick. Moving along to my number 8 pick, I selected yet another comedy, although this one does deliver a ton of action. I picked 1993's Last Action Hero, directed by the great John McTiernan, where a kid is transported into the movies to meet his favorite action hero, Arnold's Jack Slater, who is trying to stop a maniacal criminal. No, I won't deny the ridiculousness of this movie, but at the same time, couldn't that sort of be the reason why it all kind of works? I mean, I always have a good time with this movie. I think it creates a fun, very immersive, just humorously self-aware meta atmosphere, and sure, it's all a bit absurd, but I do think the writing crafts an adventurous storyline filled with hilarity and action and fantasy that can very easily sweep you up into the excitement of it all, and Arnold really commands front and center as Jack Slater. I mean, this guy is a virtual parody of himself in the action movies. It's just comical on its own right, and Arnold really was a guy that always showed he had comedic range for being an action hero, and in this movie he is able to blend both together to create just a charismatic, larger-than-life hero. I mean, this movie has a charming musical score. It showcases just as much self-awareness as the writing, and I think this movie just overall provides a well-rounded, lighthearted action adventure despite its flaws. Coming in for my number 7 movie, I picked one of the great sci-fi thrillers from the 80s, the dystopian set actioner The Running Man, directed by Paul Michael Glaser, actually based on the Stephen King novel, who wrote under a different name for that book, but here, Arnold plays a wrongfully convicted cop that is forced to compete for his freedom on a reality TV show where contestants have to battle killers to survive.
I'll be back.
only in a rerun.
This is just a wildly over-the-top movie that has endless amounts of charming ridiculousness to it. Arnold is awesome in the lead, as you would expect. I think this really was one of his first performances where he was given a bit more depth in the dialogue, and he uses it to deliver a string of comical one-liners and puns throughout all the action and the violent killing. I really do enjoy the setting and the atmosphere of this movie. It feels like it could almost be set in the same world as RoboCop with its bleak dystopian setting, but where this movie really does kick ass is inside the TV show The Running Man, led by the villainous Richard Dawson. I think this is where the eccentricity of the film really shines and really kicks in. Arnold is just battling it out against foes seemingly ripped from a hellish version of the WWF, each with their own this theme of sorts and comical names like Dynamo and Buzzsaw and Jim Brown's Fireball and Sub-Zero played by Toru Tanaka and just Captain Freedom played to nostalgic perfection by Jesse the Body Ventura. It also boasts the great Yaphet Kotto and Maria Conchita Alonso, and sadly movies like this just aren't really made anymore. Coming up next at number 6, I picked Arnold's answer to Stallone's Rambo 2, that being 1985's Commando, directed by Mark L. Lester, where Arnold plays a retired Special Forces colonel that will have to race to save his daughter from a warlord that has kidnapped her.
You scared, motherfucker? Well, you should be, because the Green Beret's gonna kick your big ass.
I eat Green Berets for breakfast.
And right now, I'm very hungry.
Now, this is as bare bones as a plotline can get. It certainly feels like it's going through the motions and there aren't really any character arcs, yet it still manages to hold up as a campy, fun 80s actioner that I always enjoy watching, one that I think almost thrives on its comical flaws and its simplicity. Arnold as John Matrix is a walking action figure in this one, and his hulking presence really is perfect for a one-man army searching for his daughter. A young Alyssa Milano actually brings some sincerity to her performance. Vernon Wells is a comically vile villain as Bennett. Bill Duke and Dan Hedaya leave their impression as well, and Ray Don Chong may not have been the best choice to pair with Arnold, but it doesn't hinder the fun of this tightly paced story. It delivers frequent killing, 80s quips and puns, and Arnold front and center makes it all work, and when the final act kicks in and the body count skyrockets, it's completely satisfying, and Commando is just a fun, turn your brain off action flick that'll never let you down when you hit the play button. And with that movie down, it leads us to the middle of my list, and for my number 5 pick, I have probably Arnold's most iconic movie from the 80s, that being The Terminator from 1984, directed by James Cameron and co-starring Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn, and we all know the plot here. Arnold plays the cyborg T-800 that is sent back to kill John Connor.
I'll be back.
Now, this is the movie that put Arnold on the map in Hollywood. It's another classic flick from the 80s. He was still very raw at this point in his acting career. His dialogue was minimal, which I actually think was kind of perfect for the menacing Terminator ordered to hunt and kill Sarah Connor. You don't want a human quality in this character, and he definitely doesn't bring one. This movie has a gritty, bleak atmosphere to it. Hamilton and Biehn were great supporting characters that you can easily invest in. I think the musical scoring just added immensely to the ominous atmosphere of everything, and with Arnold as the villain relentlessly trying to achieve his mission, there seems to be no hope, which actually makes the film that much more immersive when watching. The practical effects are nostalgic, the action kicks in at the right time throughout the story to really give it a nice flow, and this movie was so dark it just almost felt like a horror thriller as a kid when watching, and they just don't make movies with the tone and vibe of this one much anymore either. That leads to my number 4 pick, and another Arnold Cameron collaboration that for me growing up was just the definition of a summer blockbuster, that being 1994's True Lies, co-starring Jamie Lee Curtis here. Arnold's a secret agent that poses as a computer salesman to his family while also fighting international terrorism.
Sir, may I see your invitation, please?
Sure. Here's my invitation.
Now, I assume I have this movie higher on my list than most would put it, but I just love the lighthearted blend of action and comedy that it provides. It's really non-stop adventure, excitement, and amusement. I think Arnold is awesome as this James Bond meets Jason Bourne character type. He is able to kick on both his comedic chops and his action movie persona, which results in a larger-than-life hero, but one that still feels a bit grounded as well. And I think he had a fantastic cast surrounding him in this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis was just amazing in this role as the housewife with a yearning for adventure in her life. She pairs with Schwarzenegger perfectly to truly help him carry this movie. I think Tom Arnold was great as the comedic relief. He also had just a fantastic, authentic rapport with Arnold that I enjoyed. I think Tia Carrere was fun as well as the vibrant villainess, and the entire subplot with the late great Bill Paxton to me is just comedic gold. But I think where this movie really thrives is in the spectacle, which is at unprecedented levels. This movie delivers shootouts and chase sequences and massive action set pieces, and somehow it all fits into a hyper-realistic version of our world. I think Cameron's direction was impeccable. Arnold and Curtis were a great 1-2 punch, and this is one of those movies that whenever it's playing, it can lure me in no matter what I'm doing. And with that one in the books, we have reached my top 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, the best of the best, as they say. And for my number 3 pick, I have probably Arnold's most famous movie overall, Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 1991, again directed by James Cameron and co-starring Linda Hamilton, where Arnold returns, but this time as the hero sent back to protect John Connor. Now, this is probably Arnold's most iconic movie overall, and rightfully so. It does deliver the complete cinematic package, I guess you could say. The musical scoring, the visual effects, the spectacle, the story, it all just works together. Arnold flips in this one. He's now the hero, and he plays it well as he sets out to protect John Connor. Linda Hamilton returns in this one, as she's completely badass in this movie. She is 100% scarred from the first film, and to me, it really does add a charming wild card element to the plot progression overall. I think Robert Patrick was perfectly cast as the emotionless, cutting-edge T-1000, and I mean, his liquid metal construction was captured with state-of-the-art digital effects that looked fantastic, and really the action and the visual appeal in this movie still looks awesome all these years later. The chase sequence throughout the LA canals is still a fun watch, and this movie, like I said, just really delivers it all. The action set pieces are adrenaline pumping, the character moments are filled with emotion, the plot line has some thought-provoking elements to it, and that's really what makes it all mean something, because without the weight of the story or caring about the characters, Arnold sinking into the vat of melted metal would have carried zero emotional response. And for my number 2 pick, I have a movie that is probably higher on my list than most others, but it's the sci-fi actioner that I really enjoy, that being 1990's Total Recall from director Paul Verhoeven, a future set thriller where Arnold plays a man who finds that his dreams and reality are colliding in a world where memories and experiences can be implanted to experience virtual vacations, and of course things go wrong.
Catch!
Get ready for a surprise!
I assume I like this movie more than most, but I love it whenever I want a science fiction escape into 90s cinema. Arnold was badass in this movie. It's filled with plenty of action and mayhem. Arnold one-liners, a three-breasted woman, and a futuristic Mars setting that just really does thrive on the practical effects and awesome makeup work. I think Paul Verhoeven's direction is fantastic. This movie kind of has I would say a Blade Runner meets RoboCop vibe, and I think it just fits the dystopian story like a glove. But with Arnold commanding the screen, you never forget this is a big action flick, one that just so happens to also deliver a compelling narrative with plenty of meat to sink your teeth into. I think the supporting cast is fantastic as well. Michael Ironside, Ronnie Cox, Rachel Ticotin, and a young Sharon Stone are all able to add to the mix as well, and the action is just large scale, it's climactic, it's unrelenting and violent, and this one always delivers an adrenaline pumping adventure when I'm in the mood for one. And we've reached the pinnacle, my number one pick, and I have a movie that is not only my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger flick, but it's one of my favorite movies overall, and it is 1987's Predator, directed by John McTiernan, where Arnold leads a team of commandos into the jungles for a mission, but instead encounters an alien warrior, and hell breaks out from there.
When the big man was killed, you must have wounded it. Its blood was on the leaves.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
I don't really know what you could say about this movie that hasn't been said already. I think it's awesome from top to bottom. I think it's a perfectly structured and well-paced action thriller that still holds up as great today as it did back in 1987. I think Arnold is just world-class as the hero in this one. He really is the alpha in a group of alphas, and he delivers a string of great quotable 80s lines. The action is intense and unrelenting. You never know when it's going to strike, and that's kind of part of the fun because these mercenaries just get dropped off in the jungle and you can instantly connect to their isolation. You can easily feel and connect to the tension as it ramps up when each of them start getting picked off one by one. The on-location shoots really pull you into the story. The cast is fantastic across the board with a bunch of just 80s tough guys. It's just a classic actioner overall. The Predator would go on to become one of the decade's most iconic characters, but it really does all hinge on Arnold commanding the screen, and he certainly does. The final act is dialogue free and about as perfect as a film can close, because watching Arnold and his Predator battle it out man versus alien to me will never go out of style. And that is my list, guys. Those are my top 10 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. This guy is a legend. His filmography is going to stand the test of time without a doubt. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I greatly appreciate it, and let me know what some of your favorite Arnold flicks are down in the comments below.